Hello guys, Luton here, and here we are in Bastogne. It's the World War II mod for Insurgency. Now, as you will have probably seen, a lot of people are talking about this lately. I wasn't even really sure whether I wanted to check this out recently, and then last night I was like, do you know what, I'll just bang it in, see how easy it is to actually get this installed, see how easy it is to get in a game, see how it plays out. Actually, it was really easy. You just go in, change yourself into the betas and so on. For Insurgency, you download the stuff through the workshop, bang, you're good to go. You come in, get in a server. It was easy. I wasn't playing with anybody in my squad. I was literally just running solo. I think that's a good way to test stuff out initially as well, because I know that a lot of people are going to do that. I'm also presenting for you today two kind of rounds which are fairly unedited. I often think this is a very good way for you guys to get a good impression of stuff, is to look at something unedited, because then you get a real feel for it instead of selected highlights where you can see everything's going nice and smooth. You get to see the good and the bad, the rough and the smooth, you know. But also I'm going to try and just talk a little bit about sort of World War II games in general. Some people have been saying they want to see World War II for the next Battlefield. You know, it's interesting because I remember actually people having these kind of conversations a few years ago, and people were saying, no, we can't do it because, you know, there's too few guns for kind of World War II period, and it's all been done to death. It's been done so many times. It's dead. It's stale. We don't want to see that because it's been done endlessly. An interesting thing was that whilst I was playing these games tonight, I was actually sitting in TeamSpeak with some of the guys from VG, my clan, and we were talking about this a little bit, and I kind of said, you know, we were talking about the whole kind of World War II thing, and that it's been done, and I said to them, I said, you know, well, how long have you guys been playing FPS? Because I often forget that I've been playing games for a long time, and there's a lot of people that are into like Battlefield and, you know, the new Rainbow Six and stuff like this, and most of the guys were like, yeah, I've been playing since Battlefield 3, and you think, oh, okay, well, that's actually not that long. And so I think there's a very, you know, large amount of the community which maybe haven't really experienced a significant quantity of World War II shooters. Now, I would imagine that many of you guys watching this today will have, because I know that the demographic of my audience is a slightly older gamer, kind of generally about my age. So the most amount of people that watch my YouTube channel is around kind of like 20 to 40 years old. So I would imagine that most of you guys have played a reasonable amount of these games and played a reasonable amount of World War II shooters, but there's a lot of people who have not, and so this style of gameplay is pretty different. It's a big change up, and therefore it's refreshing and interesting and good. And so I think that's why we're seeing this kind of attention recently, and people saying like the next Battlefield should be, you know, World War II. But really, I'm going to talk a little bit about that. I'm going to talk a little bit about sort of what I would actually want to see there, in terms of, you know, what would I want to see in a World War II game. But let's talk about the mod here first. So, you know, what is it all about? Well, okay, so you've got a modding team, but as I understand it, I've not read into it greatly, but from what I've sort of read a little bit of and understood, the dev team have provided kind of like a platform base, and then they're allowing the sort of modding community to go crazy and do whatever else they want to do with it after that point, which is interesting. I'd be curious to kind of see what happens there. But from a very straightforward point of view, it's very simple. The maps are very straightforward. You know, you've got your basic sort of fields, you've got the, what was it, I haven't got any gameplay of it, but I did play around where it's the kind of storming the beaches, Normandy and all that kind of stuff. You got the bunkers. So there's a few different styles. There's also a night version, I think, of this map. So there's a couple of different things going on there. But, I mean, it's all very kind of standard stuff. You know, you've got some places to move to, a bit of cover here and there. It's all kind of things that we've seen before. Nothing greatly different. When it comes to the weapons, again, it's pretty standard stuff because they can't alter that much. And that's the issue with the kind of World War II period in terms of creating games for it, is that things really can't alter that much because they're set in that time period, and you have a fairly limited amount of stock weapons unless you want to kind of really suspend your disbelief and start throwing stuff in the mix which is more experimental or that wouldn't have been there. I mean, there's loads of different rationalizations you could have there in terms of, like, you know, whatever unit you're a part of or whatever. Maybe you're actually sort of like some rebel unit or, you know, things like this, and they customize their guns. You know, if you want to suspend your disbelief, you could rationalize it however you want to. But right now, it's pretty stock stuff. You know, you got the iron sight. I'm using the M1 Garand here. I didn't try any of the other loadouts really because I just went with this stock thing. And I should say as well that I haven't played this a ton. I haven't tried playing this with other people. So right now, this is kind of my initial thoughts, just kind of coming in, playing, I don't know, like 4 rounds, just decided to see how it go, how it felt, and just give some thoughts off of that. But I say I'm just kind of talking about kind of World War II games in FPS in a more kind of wider context. But, you know, one thing that I definitely felt playing this is that, and for anybody that's played, so Red Orchestra 2, and it kind of feels like this is nice, and it's built in the Source engine, which is good because it's pretty smooth generally. And when it comes to mods and stuff, obviously Source has been around for a long time, so a lot of people know the Source engine. I mean, it's fairly, you know, established. It's been around for quite some time, so therefore many people should be able to very easily get in and create some mods for this, create some new maps, maybe throw weapons, blah blah blah, loads of different stuff that you could be doing there, right? And that's all very well and good, but I kind of question, is it necessary? I mean, it's nice, but you have other games which do this as well or better, like Red Orchestra, and it's kind of like, it's fine. Like, it's fine, and also, at the end of the day, you can't complain. I mean, it's a free mod, you know, so what do you want? I mean, if you have Insurgency already, which a lot of people will do now, if you're into kind of just FPS in general, you probably tried this out, right? So yeah, if you have this already, it's free. You just go and download it, install it, it's done. It took me like 5 minutes to put in the game and I was in. So, you know, you can't really go wrong for that. So I suppose if you didn't have other World War II shooters and you wanted one to play, this would be an easy solution to that, especially once they start to flesh it out a little bit, right? But just from that comparative point of view, as I say, you know, there's other, you know, I actually sort of said this on Twitter today. I said, like, why would you know, play this when you actually have already got Red Orchestra? And, you know, some other people are saying things like Khan here says, well, it's a smaller player count, smaller maps. It's a fair point, I suppose, if you want to get that kind of style of gameplay going on there. Dokal also messaged me and he said, for me, Insurgency gameplay is a lot smoother and faster. Red Orchestra 2 is clunky and slower, but more atmospheric. Also, Insurgency mod seems to be focusing on US versus German, whereas Red Orchestra 2 is Russians versus German, so slightly different settings. So it's true, but I mean, essentially it comes down to a variation on a theme. It's just a kind of slight look again at something like this, and it's possibly because I have played a lot of World War II games. For me, it doesn't feel so fresh, doesn't feel so exciting. There's nothing here that I find, you know, makes me think, wow, this, you know, the gun sounds are not especially dramatic and exciting. You know, when you hear the shooting, you know, it doesn't kind of blow you away. You don't think, Jesus, you know, you don't hit the deck. And sound is becoming ever more something that's very, very important to me in games. You know, I really want to feel that. It needs to be visceral. It needs to kind of go through you. You know, but it's fine, you know. And you can see here that so far the gameplay that we've been having is pretty good. You know, we're sort of trying to move up and hold the line. That's what we have to actually do in this map. We have to hold this line. And I've been just trying to position myself, and then I look to turn around, bang, down I go. So I've been trying to sort of position myself decently. I've been trying to get some kills on people. I'm just sticking with the Garand. I didn't want to change it up, and I was just on a little scoreboard here. I'm doing 13 and 4, and I'm kind of in the middle there. I've been trying to push on these objectives and kind of hold the flanks and things, and it's been going not too bad. But overall, you know, it's fine. We're doing okay. One thing that I do like about the kind of periodic sort of World War II style, and this very much comes back to Verdun as well, is that I do like the fact that if you're aiming, it's quite brutal in terms of damage model, you know. So it's like if you see a guy and you can get a bead on him and you bang, you're down, he's dead, you know, and that's a really, really good feeling. I also really like the fact that Insurgency, and this was something I always liked with Insurgency right from the start, is that it doesn't have a thing that flashes up on screen saying you killed XYZ, because many times you find yourself, you know, thinking you've got a guy, but are you sure? And you sometimes have to get over there and confirm that kill. So, you know, it plays out quite differently. And this happened to me before in Insurgency as well, where I would sometimes, you know, I'd engage a couple of guys, they'd fire back, and then they wouldn't be sure. So they either have to then, you know, if they're not sure that they killed you, they have to either stay focused on your position, which means that they can potentially be flanked or shot at from a different position, you know, that's got eyes on them, or they have to come and actually confirm that kill. Either way, it means that they're having to do something extra beyond just having a thing flash up on screen and be like, bang. Now look, you see, I was pretty sure I got that guy right there. I just clipped that guy in the head as he came up on the hilltop. I was pretty damn sure I got him, but I wasn't 100%, and I was like, okay, I'm going to move over there, confirm that kill. Well, I got clipped on the way. That highlights exactly what I was just talking about, is that sometimes you want to be sure, and you can see the brutality of this. You know, I'm stepping out and dying, and the next round that we played after this was worse. I still did fine in that round, but as a team, we get hammered a lot harder in the next round, and it's the same map, and I'm actually playing the same role in the next round as well, because I thought it'd be good to play a couple that are the same as a comparison, you know. But in this, so they've got a range of different weapons. You can see that there's some LMGs, they've got snipers and stuff, all the kind of standard things. You've got your pistol. This guy here you can see is throwing a smoke grenade. As with normal Insurgency as well, you can kind of customize the weapons a little bit to give you sort of pros and cons with the weapons, but it doesn't go very far. It's not like how you would customize the weapons standard in Insurgency in terms of putting loads of add-ons on. You know, you've got like bayonet, and there's like a rifle sling or something like this, which enables you to, I think, change quicker between your sidearm and main weapon. But yeah, it's all pretty much much of a muchness. I do like the smoke in this. You can see the smoke is really nice looking. So yeah, it plays out nice. You'll see on the next map when we get to it in a minute as well that seemingly when we are having to defend the line, we're actually taking an artillery barrage, and that's kind of, I guess, designed to help the enemy who are attacking so that they're not just getting pinned down. It actually enables them to move forward. But it's sort of... There's another weird thing as well with this where if you get trapped behind enemy lines, and you'll see this in a bit, I got trapped behind enemy lines because I'd sort of moved up to try and defend and cover a position, and then I found that once I got trapped behind the restricted area, as it were, I couldn't use my weapon, which I thought was kind of crap, and it really annoyed me because I hadn't... It's not like I deliberately ran behind the line to try and shoot people in the back. I was in a legitimate defensive position, and they just took that objective whilst I was covering an area, and I suddenly couldn't fire my weapon, which I found a bit weird and frustrating, actually. But we'll go on to talk about World War II and sort of just historical shooters in modern games, I suppose, and where we are on this. There's been a lot of talk and discussion around, a lot of people sort of saying, should this be the next thing for Battlefield? And I kind of feel like yes, actually, but depending on how they did it. Right now, okay, so we had like, you could see before at that bunker, we're getting pinned down. So here I'm trying to just do a little flank. And you can see I'm being quite careful because, as you've seen, like when you're running out and about, you can get clipped pretty hard, and you can go down very, very easy. So I'm trying to be a bit careful, just moving around here, moving forward. And I want to get to this little house. I want to check and clear this area on the left-hand side of the bunker. And I'm trying to do that to help my guys. I'm trying to make sure that they're not getting pinned down because, you know, if we're over here and there's a sniper or someone shooting at our guys, that means, and I can hear shots being fired right here, and look right here on the hill. There's our man, and I got him dead. So that means that he's not shooting down on our guys, and I can check this area for any more. And the other thing is, now that I've got control of this little flank right here, they're going to have guys running in or whatever, and I'm going to be able to sort of maybe neutralise them. They thought that they had full control because they were really laying it onto us. But now from here, I can find, and I think I can see like a guy's little, yeah, you can see his feet just hanging out the back of that bush there. So I'm just trying to engage and cover that area. And now they're shooting back at me, obviously. But yeah, so Battlefield, and should the game, you know, should we be looking at World War II? I think yes. I actually think that the reason why I would like to see that is because I feel like the devs would be forced to not have loads and loads and loads of guns. I feel like that would be positive because it would mean that people would focus a lot harder on the actual gameplay, which I've said for the longest time is what's really necessary. So that would be a good thing. I think the simplicity in that sense as well would help to kind of just focus people more on what it is they're doing, what their overall objectives are in the game, and not so much on little tweaks and customizations and, you know, which gun's the best. If we have fewer weapons, they should stand on their own merit. You know, each weapon should have a pro and a con. It shouldn't be that, like, okay, out of the rifles, this gun's the best. Out of the machine guns, the LMGs, whatever, this gun is the best. It shouldn't really play like that. It should be more that, as I say, it's like each gun is on its own merit. I keep thinking back to COD 4, and COD 4 is always my kind of litmus test when it came to weapons and sort of how they stood up. I was always really frustrated and still frustrated that in Hardline, you know, one of the devs said to me, like, they're aiming for a COD 4 feel. They're aiming for, you know, guns which, you know, have real character and differentiation between them. And you can see this artillery stuff coming down on me right here. That isn't what we got in Hardline. It didn't work like that at all. You had a lot of guns which were very similar, and then a couple at the top, and despite what they said about balancing, it just didn't really happen. Okay, so, you know, that was something that was very different. I would like to see that with, you know, if they decide to go with a World War II style next Battlefield game, okay, because you have less weapons, and therefore you won't have this kind of situation when people are saying, like, this is the best gun or whatever. That shouldn't be a thing anyway, but it's like, you shouldn't enter into that situation, because hopefully, because you have a reduced amount of weapons, it should play out well. And you know, we've seen as well that Battlefield can do this in the past. Well, obviously, you know, they've had with Bad Company 2, they actually had the World War II weapons there. You had like the M1 Garand, the M1911, and these kind of things, and they played well. They played nice, and it was funny even then. I would sometimes favour the M1 Garand in Battlefield Bad Company 2 because it was just a good gun to use. I remember being able to pick people off on the move at, you know, 500-600 meters. They're crossing a field and you could just ping, take them down. It was really good. What else would I really need to see in a Battlefield World War II shooter for me to feel like it was something that really had merit and was going to be a game that I wanted to play for a long time? Well, for one thing, the level of destruction and how visceral the game was is a really big factor for me. We can't be having another fuzzy, muddy sort of state of an affair like we had with Hardline. It's got to be something that really feels gritty, you know, especially in sort of World War II fighting through Europe. It has to feel like that. And what I'm talking about there is, you know, you want to see tanks taking out sides of buildings, and I don't want to see that kind of scripted destruction anymore. It needs to move on from that. Okay, what we need to see is that, say a tank shell hits a building, it pulls and falls the rubble out from one side, and you can really grind it down in different ways. It shouldn't be like Bad Company 2, where when you hit the building, a, you know, sort of designated side of the building explodes, and that's how it goes. It's kind of stock pieces. It needs to be more fluid. It needs to be more literal in terms of how that destruction takes place. And then alongside that, you want to have the environment. It needs to be fleshed out and lush. Now, we've seen what's capable from looking at Star Wars Battlefront in terms of the environment look and feel. And, you know, Star Wars Battlefront did an amazing job of being incredibly well optimized. That is one thing Star Wars Battlefront did really, really well. So again, with the next Battlefield, what we need to see, and here we are, you can see this restricted area stuff, and that's coming in there. Now, you'll see later as well where my gun kind of gets locked up there. But yeah, Star Wars Battlefront, for what it is and the, you know, the level of detail in that game, incredibly well optimized game. So with the next Battlefield, you know, if they're going to go World War II, again, the fact that everything is going to be just more, you know, it would be more simple, there would be less weapons and things going on, there would be less sort of vehicle types, and I'm a big believer that, you know, less is more. Okay, simple is best. You can apply it to many different things. Look at like food, look at art. Okay, there's many factors where that sort of comes into play, and I could really see that being a thing with the next Battlefield game. Instead of trying to cram too much in, which was always an issue with Battlefield 4, in some ways it was an issue with Battlefield 3. You know, it just felt that it had way too much going on. And sometimes it means that people couldn't focus on, you know, what it was they were doing, I suppose. People just thinking about all the different elements way too much, and it's just too much complexity. And, you know, as a YouTube producer, that's great for people. It's great to have all that stuff because it means that you can make endless videos about different, you know, settings and parameters and all sorts of different things like this, and you can talk about all those elements and all, you know, how they play together, you know, the different factors involved and all these kind of different things. But for actual gameplay, I just didn't think it plays out that good because, you know, much better to just have it simple, and then you're focusing on the real core of the game. Then you're focusing on the actual gameplay. You're focusing on the teamwork. You're focusing on player positioning. You're focusing on, you know, key moments in that game. And it's like with all that other bump going on, it just gets in the way, in my opinion. You know, keep it simple, keep it tight, do it well. That's really what I want to see. And, you know, with Hardline as well, it was a good example of this. You know, they just kind of had all sorts of different ideas going on all over the place. Some of them good, some of them not so good. And it kind of just didn't really come together well. I guess that's the other issue, really, is that, you know, if you're producing something, if you have a lot of ideas going on there, it kind of increases the risk there of something potentially going wrong. Whereas if you have less, okay, and it means you can focus on those elements more, then you have less likelihood of it going wrong because you can focus more on it. Whereas if you have too many different things happening, you know, you've got to make sure that all of those things are working together in sync, and they're all positive, they're all constructive, they're all coming together to, you know, do it well and make the game good, right? But anyway, so coming back to actually the game itself and what I would want to see there, I mean, this is the thing, it's kind of, it's difficult to really sort of go out of the scope and really imagine what you would want to see there, because it's been done so much. This is the trouble. For someone who has played games for a long time, and with World War II as well, with World War II games, there's been so many that have been done. Look at the Call of Duty series when it was still kind of, it made sense to the title, the Call of Duty series, and then obviously you've got stuff like the original Battlefield, okay, so Battlefield 1942, got that there. You've also got even like Battlefield 1943, which was on the PlayStation. It was a downloadable game, and Battlefield 1943 focused on the maps you had in sort of the Pacific, so that's really where it was focused. And that Battlefield 1943 was an excellent game, and it really played into what I'm talking about with the simplicity. In Battlefield 1943, what you had was a real simple choices, simple array of choices in that game. So you basically had, I think, like standard assault, you had like a recon sniper, and you had like an engineer role, and that was it. And the guns and stuff were set, so you had to play that role. They had very limited, so you had like some tanks, you had some jeeps, you had the aeroplanes, you had the amphibious attack boats and all this kind of stuff going on, like the landing craft basically. Battlefield 1943 played out so good. It was unbelievably addictive. I loved the hell out of it. And the reason being, because I didn't have to worry about all that other stuff going on. You could focus on you just get your kit and then you're in the game. And actually, that's what Insurgency here felt like to me today. I didn't have to worry about like tweaking my kit and my loadout, making it perfect, and worrying about, okay, well, I've chosen this and somebody else has chosen that. Did that mean that they get the drop on me? Did that mean that what they got one extra bullet and I didn't? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, because you just grab your gear and you get in the game, and then you're focused on what you're doing in the game, which is having good gameplay. And I feel like that's something that's been killing a lot of FPS lately. It's been feeling very frustrating and stagnating, is that there's too many choices, and then you end up sort of micromanaging and you start questioning everything, and people get really het up on the time to kill. So this kind of simplicity is a blessing in disguise, and I really hope that if they did, no idea, if they did decide to go with that for the next Battlefield, I think it could be a good thing for many, many different reasons. But I think not so many of the reasons that many people are looking at. I think many people are looking at it because they're just like, hey, wouldn't it be cool to have World War II stuff and all these kind of guns? I'm actually thinking of it from a more kind of core perspective in terms of the actual gameplay and how that plays out for you. I think that would be the best thing about it. Forget about all the beauty and all this kind of stuff in terms of how they would dress it up and how what battles they might choose, and the towns and the villages, and the weapons, how well they would work, all this kind of stuff. I think it's more about the simplicity of the choices you would have there, and then the fact that it would focus and really funnel and sort of bottle that gameplay down. It would refine it so that you had a more simple but more focused and just more enjoyable experience. You can see right here again in this restricted area stuff, I got caught out there. I was on that flank, I just couldn't do anything with my gun. That guy just cuts me down. Didn't really enjoy that so much. That was a bit frustrating. And you can see that we get really pinned very, very hard into this sort of section at the end here, which was, not gonna lie, it was a bit frustrating, but I suppose no more frustrating than in Rush in Battlefield when you get trapped in there as well. So it was a very kind of similar feeling. One thing that would be really, really important to me, though, if they do go down this World War II route, will be the sounds. The sounds, to an extent, the graphics, I'm not so worried about that, but the sounds would be absolutely critical for me. If they're making this game, there's a lot of sounds which they need to get really spot on perfect, and they need to really deliver that, because I feel like sounds have been quite neglected for a while, and it's just like, the thing is, when I go from Armour, because now I've been playing Armour so much, and you go from stuff like the JSRS mod for the sounds in that game, and when those guns fire, the sound, like and it really makes you like, Jesus Christ, and it sounds so much more immersive. It really drags you into the game, and when you have guns that are sounding like they do here, and it's just kind of like poof, 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 and it's just kind of like, yeah, whatever, I don't really care. It doesn't make you feel terrified. It doesn't make you feel connected and immersed and really sort of thrown into it. It doesn't feel like that at all. If they're going to do that, if they're going to have a World War II title, what it needs to feel like is, that first scene in Saving Private Ryan, or, like in the Pacific, when I watched, you got Band of Brothers, and you got like the Pacific. I watched the Pacific. I watched it in almost like, I think I watched it in a 2-day sitting. I watched half and then half the next day. And my God, when I was putting my head down to go to sleep at night, I was still hearing bullets and shooting happening in my head, like whilst I was trying to go to sleep, because there'd just been so much going on. It should kind of be like that, I guess, is what I'm saying. It should be that when you fire, it's like, ching, ching, you know, you really want to hear that sound, that metal, that mechanism. You know, it's got that very kind of physical connective feel, and that's what you want to have. It needs to have that, because those are the kind of things which pull you in and make that physicality of the game so much more real. It kind of really pulls you in there, and then that in turn immerses you in the game more. It kind of connects to the gameplay. It's all connected together. You know, I think I was just checking through here. What was I looking for? I can't remember why I was even looking, but anyway, it doesn't matter. But yeah, so the sound is one thing, and then I will just come back and say a little bit about the graphics. You know, I can think of many situations where that would work. You can just imagine maybe sort of like a rail yard at night and it's raining. Maybe it's just sort of turning to that kind of twilight time, and it's just kind of this rain coming down, it's pouring down the trucks, and you're kind of running around there stalking, and there's tanks like driving around. That could be one thing. The classic sort of, you know, village that you're coming into, maybe some kind of French village they're coming through, and again, like I was saying about earlier, tanks taking out buildings. You know, you could have a guy with an MG42 up on the top, firing out, you've got to sniper him. There's so many different ways in which this could play. Of course, you're going to have the classic storming of the beach, but, you know, they could try and throw in some Pacific theatre stuff as well. So you've got kind of atolls and islands that have to be fought over, very brutal kind of exposed combat, but you've really got to make run for it, you know, have loads of smoke stuff going on there. I really want to see things like smoke and those other little elements like really focused on more as well. Stuff like the grenades. If you're throwing down smoke, it should flow out and billow out. So really get that kind of feel, and be big smoke as well, so you can actually use it as a tactical tool. There's so many more things I want to talk about. Obviously, you can get into the really fine details of these kind of things, but I really wanted to kind of just talk about it generally today off the back of this. And tell me your thoughts about, you know, World War II Insurgency mods. Tell me your thoughts about whether you want to see it in Battlefield. I mean, I think World War II titles seem to be having a bit of a renaissance at the moment. It seems like a lot of people are suddenly like, World War II. So, you know, maybe things are going to start leaning back in that direction. I actually think it's a pretty good thing. I'm still not convinced by the Insurgency mod. I feel like, as I say, Red Orchestra does as good a job there, but, you know, in terms of just bringing it back to that kind of core, refined, you know, simple gameplay, I think it's a really good thing. Tell me your thoughts down below, guys, and I'll be back soon with some more discussion around this World War II theme.